Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was pleased also myself as a member um, about the presentations that have been made. And I want to commend everyone that have done their presentation here today. I want to ask Mr. Davis a question. It's something that we all, even in the private sector, have to confront. There's a constant change. Digicel has to now look at money transaction on phone as a new way forward. The Computer Society could help us in many ways to inform us that the change is by the minute of the day now in technology. And I believe that in many areas of our government, we are not responsive to this change. And one of the things that we have to get persons like my friend, Mr. Jones, and us to do at the permanent secretary level is to understand that we have to respond in Jamaica if we want to stay modern to that change, and therefore we have to set maybe some committees. Maybe we have to have a reform committee that is constant in the government, that is relating to the labor force and everything, and is a constant change, and there's a capital there for it. And I want to ask you a question, whether or not a committee, similar to what we are doing here, should not be a permanent fixture within the government now to really invite the researchers, invite the universities, invite all these things on a project basis to deal with the various changes and recommendations, and then that will go directly to cabinet and ministries and permanent secretaries. Because we even do a lot of overlapping. And it has ended up with agencies within even my ministry doing the same things and carrying, they may sound different, but they all could be fit into one being. And I'm a bit concerned that we have built up a situation where everyone may protect their turf, but in essence, the taxpayers are calling on us to respond to them more efficiently at providing a service. When in essence, all we need to do is to have a continuous changing mechanism in government that is responsive to that change and does not get us to a clogged situation where we are almost at odds with each other to break it into that efficient role. So I'm asking you, Mr. Davis, because I know the years of service that you have offered to the public, to this public service. And I know you mentioned keenly of Mr. Danville Walker's statement and what the resource part of what Mr. Jones spoke about in his presentation. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that this continuous change from the Computer Society side, I have seen where fiscal services may be doing something very good for us in terms of the ports, customs, company office, and doing the link up with trade board and all that. I have worked alongside with them. But then the software management that CETO offers is not interfacing with the whole thing. And then the synchronizing is that fiscal service could be doing one thing while CETO could be doing another, but could have synchronized, because where hardware and software is concerned, sometimes it interfaces. It interfaces back because sometimes technologies don't need softwares in hardware, and it vice versa. So I'm just saying that the time has come. I've always said in committees, and committee members can back me up, when we have to deal with the budget, and when I see the approval status that is taking place, I spend 2 hours in the morning to view companies in 12 countries. And I have to do approvals on my phone. Maybe before it was computer. Maybe before it was faxing a document. Maybe before it's a couple days and weeks that I used to have to use to send FedEx document. Maybe in the past I couldn't do it. So I use that chronology to say to you that times have changed, where ministers could be in China and by means of a code document sent. And we have the electronic code, right? But we will not spend money to set up the systems to deal with that, not even from a one ministry point of view. Use a practice system to say, I'm going to use one ministry to do it, right? And I say this because of the wealth of knowledge in knowing how much money we have spent on waste, where you buy a computer, put at a desk, and that staff never use it. And by the time they start to learn how to use it, it becomes outdated, right? And the technology passes that staff to the point where we didn't evaluate whether or not that staff was competent enough to do the job. Until eventually you have to spend new money to buy a computer, then train the staff, then to find out that staff may need to go somewhere else and you retrofit someone else there. And it all go into this ball of, it does not boil down to getting rid of people, because I don't believe necessarily that we are going to be getting rid of too many people in this reform. I believe that what we're going to do is probably re-engineering, retooling, and maybe some of the very same people. I'm very impressed of the staff that I see in the public service. The problem is the management of the staff in the public service and the systems in the public service, the overlapping things that we see in the public service, that is really causing some of the problem. And people not being too protective, but feeling that they are part of a system that is delivering a service to a public out there that is demanding it, right? And if they can be sold a culture, and the culture seems to be working for them, I believe it can work. And I take seriously what the labor union are saying about the pension system. It's part of the security, right? And I believe that we ought to combine some of the key points they have made there. Maybe the time has come, Mr. Davis, for us to look at a contributory system. And it has to be sit down and worked on as a project. And it may take an organization or a group like what we have here in order to do that in an off sense and make the recommendation to government. Because the government, it needs that help of the expertise of the universities, of the college, of this computer society, of the unions, putting their input in and sit down and work and make the recommendations. And I'm saying, I asked the senior man, and the main reason why I asked you, sir, is because we have a committee here that is looking at this thing, and it might drag on for years. It may also mean for us, with Mr. Jones and the unions and the various groups that have come here, to look at priority areas that we can deal with now. Because this committee cannot sit here talking and people coming from various ministries. We have made decisions on agencies that are not going to be touched. We could actually say that let's start with some efficiencies and let's start with some re-engineering in some of these agencies, retooling in some of these agencies, so that can start to make the government very effective, right? We have seen that in the tax year, I've seen that at customs. And then we can start to know exactly when the next budget come up, where to put some funding. So I yield on and ask Mr. Davis to respond. Thank you.
A permanent review or permanent reform committee. It can be done. I believe that a committee like this